All right, welcome into another Whether or Not. I'm your host, meteorologist Scott Sumner, and it is a great sunny day out there today. And if you like wine, I got a little treat for you. We're talking a little wine, and we're talking a little weather, and how weather impacts wine. With me is guest Manolo Gomez. He's a winemaker at Sugarloaf Mountain Vineyard in Virginia. Manolo, I know we tried to get this done a couple of weeks ago. I thank you for your patience in coming on board today. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, Scott, by the way, it's not Virginia, it's Maryland.
I'm sorry, Maryland, yes. We cover Maryland, we cover Virginia and the district, of course. Hey, do me a favor, tell me a little bit about you and how you got to become a winemaker.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Scott. It was, long story short, I studied business first and I started my professional career in the beverage industry. First of all, working in the sales, marketing and distribution division for a brewery. However, I realized that I wanted to feel more connected with nature. So I kind of did a research to see which fields will be personally fulfill me in a way to be more in outdoor environment. And the vineyard and the winemaking fits perfect. So that's how I decided to go that route and becoming a winemaker.
That's great. I'm one for you. I believe in being outdoorsy. I'm very much that way. I enjoy that aspect, so I can completely relate to what you're saying there, Manolo. But, when people think of winemakers, they think, all right, well, geez, there's got to be a lot of schooling with that. And how many years and what type of schooling did you go through to become a winemaker?
I did at UC Davis, University of California, Davis. There is a program that is very intense. It's 2 years with all the fields of winemaking and viticulture. So that way you can have broad knowledge and specific, the part of chemistry and the part of the vineyard as well. That is very important. Good wine starts on the vineyard, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I'm more of a white wine guy. I like the sweeter wines personally, like the Rieslings, but red wines are delicious too as well, and we'll get into the weather aspect in a moment on that. But in the world of wine, who would you say you most admire and why? Maybe somebody that influenced you.
Well, when it comes to the world of wine and viticulture, there are a few people that I admire the most. One of them is Lucy Morton, which is probably considered the godmother of viticulture. In USA, is the most admired person in that field. And in Maryland is also Joe Fiola, that is helping a lot on raising up the bar on the winemaking and viticulture part of it. That's pretty much on America part of it. Then in France, there was a consultant called Jacques Boissonat. He was a consultant. He passed away, by the way. He worked for 40 years with immense producers in the left bank in Bordeaux. And he has a plenty of history of success. Fortunately, passed away not that long ago.
Oh, wow. West Bank of France there?
It was the left bank, where is Cabernet Sauvignon based.
Oh, wine. I mean, everyone says France. Go to France to get the real wine, right? Right? Is that true?
Each region has their own wonders, right? So let's say if you speak about Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, yeah, probably Bordeaux is very well known, depends if it's the left or the right bank, but you have amazing Italians and amazing American wine as well. Just name it, just Napa, Oregon, Virginia, New York, Washington State. It's like we don't have probably that much history than European, than the whole world, but we are getting there. I mean, every year there is more than 10 wineries opening and vineyards opening on the States.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, not only wineries, but microbreweries and distilleries. After COVID, kind of the business model are changing a little bit.
Thank goodness for that, right? Thank goodness for post-COVID stuff. As I was kind of researching the wine system, I came across a question, and I wanted to ask you about this. Winemakers like yourself, you have a style, and if you do, what is your winemaking style?
Well, my winemaking style is all about balance. I believe in finding an harmonious blend of different components, so we can create what is truly delicious. Whether it's the balance between tannins, fruit, alcohol, and acidity. If you put those components in a perfect way after blending, that's when you get balance. But don't forget, balance start on the vineyard. Then you can have a balanced wine on the winery.
And kind of like as a follow-up to that question, you've been doing this for a while. Does it take a little time to create your own winemaking style? It's not something like you instantaneously hear. You're a winemaker in day one and you've got a style. It does take a little time for you to create a style. Is that correct?
Yeah, it requires some time, so you can kind of assess where or which way you want to go with your winemaking craft. There is many ways of going. But I find that the balance of wine should be, in my case, the best way to go.
All right, so how do you know, Manolo, when you have a particularly good vintage on your hands? What are the keys?
Well, plenty of sunshine, Scott, plenty of sunshine, not much rain. I mean, rain is not our enemy. It's just rain needs to be present in the correct timing. But if you get too much rain on flowering, or you get too much rain when it's harvest time, then you got a lot of diseases around and rots and and dilution. So sunshine and not much rain, hopefully no rain would be better, but sunshine gives you the key of concentration. If you have a small berry with enough tannins, enough ripeness, enough acidity, you can have and find balance on it. Now, how I know, so far it's so great. I mean, 2023, we have one of our driest years so far, dry spring, pretty much dry summer. So we are pursuing on that way of good concentration, low down in mildew, no disease, easy working with the canopy because there is no much water, so the vines doesn't grow that much. So it's easy for us. 2022 and 2023, those 2 years, hand by hand, are doing great here in this region.
Yeah, you're right, because it has been really dry. We get every week an update on the drought situation. And yeah, it has been abnormally dry, which in the back of my mind, I thought, yeah, that might be helping the situation when it comes to producing wine. Now, you talk about, sunshine, we need that. We really don't like, or we want to get rain at a certain time, not, constant rain. What about the temperature aspect of it? Do wineries prefer warmer temperatures, or do they prefer maybe a moderate or cooler temperatures?
So it's all about regions, right? So we are on the region that is the portion of the subtropical climate region, which means that we can have really hot summers and very cold winters. And for each region and each site, you have to be aware of what varieties to cultivate and grow. So that way it can match the weather and the temperatures that you fall in the site. So we will not, for example, plant in here Riesling, because Riesling is pretty much for really, really cool weather, right?
Okay.
And we are more on the Bordeaux style, so Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and the blends of them, which fits very well. In the rainy years, like for example 2020 or 2011, we have to deal with nature and try to play smart with it, so we can have a pretty decent wine.
It's so fascinating. You do, in essence, Manolo, and you got to know a little bit of weather as a winemaker. It helps
Oh, for sure.
a little bit, yeah, for sure. Now, do the grapes for white wine get treated differently compared to grapes for red wine?
Yes, it is treated differently, not only on the vineyard, but also on the wine. Once you harvest it, for example, you get more fruit on the vines on the white varieties like Chardonnay, Viognier, Chardonnay, because on whites, for white wines, white grapes doesn't need to be that ripe. But on the other side, reds needs concentration, needs being the fruit very ripe, so you can extract all the flavors and the colors that you tend to have. Now, for fermentation, what you do is having all the the skins fermenting with your red fruit on the tank. And then once it's fermented, you press it and you have more wine. But for whites, what you do is press first and then ferment later. So you extract all the juice on the white, send it to the tank, add the yeast or natural yeast, and then you allow fermentation. So there is ways to be different. Now, there are producers that they can do fermentation with skins on whites, but that's experimental. It's not our case.
Interesting stuff there. Now, we kind of touched, I have a couple of questions here I think we kind of touched on, but I'll ask again. Has our dry weather made a big dent in wine production for us this year?
No, a bit. Not for our industry. We want plenty of sunshine and dry spring and summers to have a better wine. So it didn't get any disadvantage on the weather so far.
Okay, all right. I just have two more questions for you. What is one of the most rewarding things about your job? I ask this to a lot of different guests, and it sometimes catches them off guard, but I want to find out from your standpoint. What has been the most rewarding in your job?
One of the most rewarding, as I told you, things about my job is working with nature. It is a great way to feel connected with first yourself, the environment, and your essence. Because you have on the field a lot of time being working alone. There is something spiritual about nature, and you can have the sense that reflected. It's like wine is like a photography. It's a photograph of the year, and it's a reflection of your way of thinking and your philosophy in a bottle of wine. And that's what it's about. Great. I mean, you want to work with my dog on the field, it's great. I mean, I'm pretty much connected with down to earth.
Oh, you know, actually, I lied here for a moment. I have still two questions for you. This one I didn't run by you before, but this one just kind of popped into my head because you mentioned being outdoors. What about the aspect of insects, bugs attacking the vines for the grape? How do you control that?
Well, that's a big part of our industry for sure. I mean, birds, for example, birds can eat your entire production if you don't take care of that. And how do you? There is many ways to combat that pest. And birds, what you do or what we do here is we put overall bird netting, so it goes above all the rows, so that way the birds cannot come in. It's like a mesh.
Okay.
and that protects our crop. Um, Other producers can have, like Bear Canyon or this. Do you see this inflate that car dealers use it for
Oh,
moving with the
like the
propane?
balloon,
Yeah.
like one of those floating balloons there or something. Yeah.
Yes. Laser rays, ray laser going all over the way. There is bear guard stressors. It's a special music and sounds that distress the birds so they cannot come in.
Huh.
So there is a lot of ways. And what else? Then you have the groundhogs. You have, groundhog deers. And deers, you eliminate deers with a good, tall, high fence, deer fence. If the fruit is protected with the bird netting and there is no pecking from the birds to the fruit, pretty much you are protected against any insects, let's say that way.
Good. That's good stuff. Yeah. Thankfully so.
Yeah. Well, the other side, you have, Japanese beetles, you have spot lanternflies. The spot lanternflies, we are glad that they are not showing here yet. And they can be a challenge
I
as
bet.
well.
I bet. Yeah. It's, you're fighting forces of nature. You're trying to produce, and you're fighting against all the animals, the birds, the insects that want to go and attack that winery there and those grapes. All right.
Right.
Last question for you. What, and this is kind of plugging the winery if you have, any events coming up at the winery for you? Anything special?
Well, there is this group of members here. It's called Bacchus Case Club members. And those members are the often comes and are our own members that we provide a special treat for them. And we will have a hiking event for them around 20 acres planted fields. And we can taste the wines in every single block. Let's say if we go to Cabernet Sauvignon, we will taste Cabernet Sauvignon from that block from last year vintage. So we can make a talk about the comparison of 2022 vintage and the following one that is going to happen in September and October. That's pretty much the most exciting one that we will have. And also we have live music every weekend from 2 to 4, food vendors, and that's pretty much what we do.
Very nice. Yeah. Well then, guys, if you're listening, come on out, visit Manolo out there at the winery at the Sugarloaf Mountain Vineyard, and listen to a little music, drink a little wine, enjoy your time on a weekend. Manolo, thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time today. And we do appreciate, I certainly appreciate you coming on board here and telling us a little explanation about weather, wine, and some of the difficulties and challenges that you have as a job. So thanks again. I much appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, all right, once again, that was Manolo Gomez, Sugarloaf Mountain Vineyard. I want to thank him coming on board and explaining a little bit of the wine situation, being a winemaker. Very cool stuff. Well, as always, God bless, be well, stay safe. That's it for this week's Whether or Not. We'll talk again next week.